15 years of unanswered questions, until now. And be sure to subscribe to our channel now to follow this case to its conclusion. It's a story you won't want to miss. Claire Peterson was the embodiment of sunshine in Tampa, Florida. A devoted young mother, a loving wife, and a cherished member of her community, Claire radiated warmth and kindness to everyone she met. Her life, seemingly ordinary on the surface, was rich with purpose and filled with the simple joys of family and friendship. Her days typically began before sunrise. Claire would quietly slip out of bed, careful not to wake her husband, Mark, or their young daughter, Lily. She cherished these early morning hours, using them for quiet reflection and preparation for the day ahead. A cup of strong coffee was a necessity, followed by a quick review of her schedule. She juggled many responsibilities, but she always managed to do it with a smile. Claire's most important role was being a mother to Lily. Lily was the light of her life, a vibrant and energetic child who filled their home with laughter. Claire poured her heart and soul into raising Lily, ensuring she felt loved, supported, and encouraged to pursue her dreams. They had a special bond, sharing secrets, playing games, and simply enjoying each other's company. Mark, Claire's husband, was her rock. They had been together since college, their love deepening with each passing year. They shared a comfortable life in their suburban home, building a foundation of trust, respect, and unwavering support. Mark worked as an accountant, providing stability for their family, while Claire pursued her passions. In addition to her family responsibilities, Claire held a part-time job at a local bookstore. She loved books and enjoyed being surrounded by literature and fellow book enthusiasts. The job provided her with a sense of intellectual stimulation and allowed her to connect with people who shared her interests. It also gave her a small income, which she used to contribute to the family's finances and pursue her hobbies. Claire also had ambitions beyond her current routine. She dreamed of opening her own small business, a quaint little bakery where she could share her love of baking with the community. She spent her free time experimenting with recipes, perfecting her skills, and dreaming of the day when her bakery would become a reality. She envisioned a place filled with the aroma of freshly baked bread and the sound of happy customers enjoying her creations. October 3, 2009, started like any other day. Claire woke up early, prepared breakfast for her family, and dropped Lily off at school. She then headed to the grocery store to pick up a few items for dinner. It was a routine trip, one she had made countless times before. Little did she know that this seemingly ordinary day would soon turn into a nightmare. Upon returning home from the grocery store, Claire parked her car in the driveway. As she began unloading the groceries, something unimaginable happened. She vanished. Just like that, she was gone. Mark arrived home from work later that evening to find the car still parked in the driveway, the groceries scattered on the ground, and the front door ajar. But Claire was nowhere to be found. Panic immediately set in. He called out her name, searching every room in the house, but there was no response. His heart pounded in his chest as a sense of dread washed over him. Lily, arriving home from after-school activities, sensed the immediate tension. The usually warm and inviting atmosphere of their home was replaced by an eerie silence. She clung to her father, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. "Where's Mommy?" she asked, her voice trembling. Mark, struggling to maintain his composure, immediately called 911. His voice was filled with desperation as he reported his wife's disappearance. The 911 dispatcher, sensing the urgency of the situation, assured him that help was on the way. The police arrived quickly and immediately launched an investigation. They treated the case as a possible abduction, given the circumstances of Claire's disappearance. The neighborhood was immediately swarming with officers, detectives, and forensic experts. The police began by interviewing Mark, asking him detailed questions about his wife's routine, her relationships, and any potential enemies she might have had. He cooperated fully, providing them with every piece of information he could think of, desperate to help them find his missing wife. The initial investigation focused on the possibility that Claire had been abducted. The police canvassed the neighborhood, interviewing neighbors and searching for any witnesses who might have seen something suspicious. They checked local security cameras, hoping to capture any clues that could lead them to Claire. The Peterson family was well known and well liked in the community. Mark, a dedicated father and husband, was known for his calm demeanor and strong work ethic. Lily, a bright and bubbly child, was adored by her classmates and teachers. Claire's disappearance sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community. The Tampa community rallied around the Peterson family, offering their support and assistance in any way they could. Search parties were organized, flyers were distributed, and vigils were held, all in the hope of bringing Claire home safely. The outpouring of love and concern was a testament to the impact Claire had on those around her. Local news outlets picked up the story, increasing public awareness and putting pressure on the police to find Claire. Emotional appeals from the family for Claire's safe return were broadcasted on television and radio, tugging at the hearts of viewers and listeners. The media coverage helped to keep Claire's case in the public eye, ensuring that she was not forgotten. As the days turned into weeks, the initial hope began to wane, replaced by a growing sense of fear and uncertainty. The police investigation stalled, with no significant leads emerging. The community's efforts to find Claire, while well-intentioned, yielded no results. The once optimistic atmosphere was replaced by a heavy cloud of despair. The unanswered questions loomed large, casting a shadow over the Peterson family and the entire community. The frustration was palpable as the reality of the situation began to sink in. Where was Claire? What had happened to her? And would they ever find her? Weeks turned into months, and the investigation into Claire Peterson's disappearance began to stagnate. The initial flurry of activity, the frantic search parties, and the intense media coverage slowly faded as no credible leads surfaced. Detectives tirelessly followed every possible avenue, but each one led to a dead end. The vibrant hope that had initially fueled the search gradually dwindled, replaced by a grim acceptance that the answers might remain elusive. The focus shifted from immediate rescue to a more methodical, albeit disheartening, process of elimination. Investigators meticulously examined Claire's background, poring over her financial records, scrutinizing her relationships, and searching for any hidden signs of trouble. They delved into her past, looking for any indication of enemies, debts, or secret liaisons that could provide a motive for her disappearance. Every aspect of her life was dissected and analyzed, hoping to uncover a clue that could unlock the mystery. Her friends and family were re-interviewed, their accounts cross-referenced, searching for inconsistencies or omissions that might shed light on her final days. Inevitably, suspicion began to fall upon Mark Peterson, Claire's husband. It's an unfortunate but common pattern in missing person cases. Law enforcement protocol dictates that those closest to the missing individual are subject to intense scrutiny. Detectives explored every facet of Mark's life, both personal and professional, looking for any red flags. His initial cooperation with the police was noted, but it didn't exempt him from being considered a person of interest. His alibi for the night of Claire's disappearance became a focal point of the investigation. Mark stated that he had been working late at the office on the evening of October 3rd, a claim that was initially verified by several colleagues. He provided documentation of his work activities, including emails and project files, which seemed to corroborate his account. Security footage from the office building also showed him entering and leaving the premises during the time frame he specified. However, investigators remained cautious, knowing that alibis could be fabricated or manipulated. They meticulously examined the evidence, searching for any discrepancies or inconsistencies that could undermine Mark's claims. The lack of physical evidence at the scene presented a significant challenge for investigators. There were no signs of a struggle, no witnesses to the abduction, and no concrete clues to indicate what had happened to Claire. The absence of any tangible evidence made it difficult to establish a clear timeline of events, or to identify a potential suspect. The scattered groceries and the open front door suggested a sudden and unexpected interruption, but they provided little insight into the circumstances surrounding Claire's disappearance. The crime scene, or lack thereof, offered no answers, only more questions. The psychological impact of Claire's disappearance on Mark and Lily was devastating. Mark was consumed by grief, guilt, and a relentless sense of helplessness. He struggled to cope with the uncertainty of Claire's fate, torn between hope and despair. He found it difficult to function, unable to concentrate on his work, or even perform simple daily tasks. The absence of his wife left a gaping hole in his life, and he felt lost and alone. Lily, only a young child at the time of her mother's disappearance, suffered profound emotional trauma. She missed her mother terribly, constantly asking when she was coming home. The uncertainty surrounding her mother's fate left her feeling anxious and insecure. She struggled to understand what had happened, and the lack of closure made it difficult for her to grieve. The absence of her mother created a void in her life that could never be truly filled. Mark did his best to comfort Lily and provide her with the love and support she needed, but he knew that he could never replace her mother. The weight of his own grief, combined with the responsibility of caring for his daughter, was almost unbearable. As time passed without any significant breakthroughs, the case eventually went cold. The active investigation was scaled back, and the file was relegated to the cold case unit. The detectives who had initially worked on the case moved on to other assignments, their hopes of finding Claire slowly fading. The community, once united in their determination to find Claire, began to lose hope as well. The vigils became less frequent, the flyers faded from public view, and Claire's name gradually faded from the headlines. The passing years brought no answers, only more heartache and uncertainty. Mark and Lily were left to grapple with the lingering pain of Claire's disappearance, their lives forever marked by the unresolved mystery. They clung to the hope that one day they would finally learn the truth about what had happened to Claire and find some measure of peace. The growing sense of hopelessness permeated their lives, casting a long shadow over their future. Each passing year served as a painful reminder of the time that had been lost and the unanswered questions that continued to haunt them. The possibility of ever finding Claire alive seemed increasingly remote, but they refused to give up hope entirely. The memory of Claire, the vibrant and loving woman they had lost, kept them going, fueling their determination to never forget her and to continue searching for answers, no matter how elusive they might be. The years continued to slip by, each one deepening the wound and solidifying the chilling reality that Claire Peterson might never be found. The story of the young mother who vanished from her driveway became a local legend, a haunting reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring power of hope in the face of unimaginable loss. Years blurred into one another. The vibrant green lawns of Tampa faded through cycles of brown and back again, each season a silent marker of time's relentless march. 2009 turned into 2010, then 2015, and eventually 2024. The world moved on, technological advancements surged forward, and forensic science leaped ahead. Yet, for Lily Peterson, and for the few who still remembered, Claire remained frozen in time, a young mother forever missing from her driveway. The advancements in forensic technology, however, began to whisper promises of renewed hope. DNA analysis had become exponentially more sensitive, capable of extracting information from the faintest traces of biological material. Digital forensics had evolved into a sophisticated art, capable of uncovering hidden data and reconstructing deleted files from computers and mobile devices. Cold case investigation techniques had become more refined, incorporating behavioral analysis, geographical profiling, and the latest insights into criminal psychology. These advancements, once unimaginable, offered a glimmer of possibility that Claire's case might not be as cold as it seemed. Lily Peterson, now a young woman, refused to let her mother's case fade into obscurity. The pain of her loss had matured into a quiet, steely resolve. She had grown up in the shadow of her mother's disappearance, the unanswered questions shaping her identity and fueling her determination. She became a tireless advocate, contacting law enforcement agencies, attending cold case conferences, and utilizing social media to keep her mother's story alive. She understood that time was a formidable enemy, eroding memories and obscuring evidence, but she was determined to fight against the tide of apathy. Her unwavering dedication caught the attention of Detective Ray Maxwell, a seasoned cold case investigator with a reputation for tenacity and a keen eye for detail. Maxwell had recently transferred to the Tampa Police Department and was looking for a challenging case to sink his teeth into. He reviewed the files of numerous unsolved disappearances, but Claire Peterson's story resonated with him. He saw the pain in Lily's eyes, the unwavering hope in her voice, and he was moved by the injustice of a life cut short. Detective Maxwell decided to reopen Claire's case, bringing fresh eyes and modern techniques to an investigation that had been dormant for years. He began by meticulously reviewing the original case files, poring over witness statements, crime scene photos, and forensic reports. He identified potential gaps in the initial investigation, overlooked leads, and inconsistencies that warranted further examination. He recognized that the key to solving the case might lie in a detail that had been previously dismissed as insignificant. One of Maxwell's first steps was to re-examine the physical evidence collected at the scene. He submitted several items to the State Crime Lab for advanced forensic testing, including items of clothing, personal belongings, and samples collected from Claire's car. He hoped that advancements in DNA analysis might reveal previously undetectable traces of biological material that could link a suspect to the crime. He also focused on digital forensics, recognizing the potential for uncovering crucial information from Claire's and Mark's computers, phones, and online activity. He obtained warrants to access their electronic devices and social media accounts, meticulously searching for emails, text messages, search histories, and online communications that might shed light on their lives and relationships leading up to Claire's disappearance. As Detective Maxwell delved deeper into the digital realm, he began to uncover a web of secrets and hidden truths that had remained concealed for years. He discovered deleted emails, encrypted messages, and suspicious online activity that raised red flags and cast doubt on the initial assumptions of the investigation. A previously insignificant piece of information, a seemingly innocuous detail overlooked in the original investigation, suddenly came to light, sparking a renewed sense of hope. It was a phone record, a missed call placed from Mark's phone to an unknown number hours after Claire was reported missing. The number had been traced to a prepaid cell phone, purchased anonymously just days before Claire's disappearance. The prepaid phone was never recovered, and the identity of the person who received the call remained a mystery. This new lead breathed life back into the cold case, providing Detective Maxwell with a tangible avenue to pursue. He recognized that the phone call could be a critical piece of the puzzle, potentially linking Mark Peterson to Claire's disappearance. He immediately launched an investigation to identify the recipient of the call and uncover the purpose of the communication. He began by contacting the cell phone provider, seeking information about the prepaid phone's usage and location data. He also reached out to law enforcement agencies in other jurisdictions, requesting assistance in identifying the subscriber of the unknown number. He knew that finding the person on the other end of that phone call could be the key to unraveling the mystery of Claire's disappearance. The dedication of Detective Maxwell and Lily's unwavering commitment underscored the importance of persistence in the pursuit of justice. Even after 15 years, the determination to uncover the truth remained strong, fueled by the belief that no case is ever truly cold. The glimmer of hope that had emerged with the discovery of the new lead served as a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, the possibility of finding answers remains alive. The search for Claire Peterson was far from over, and with each new piece of evidence uncovered, the hope of bringing her home, or at least finding closure for her family, grew stronger. The discovery of the previously overlooked phone record sent a jolt of energy through the cold case investigation. The call, placed hours after Claire was reported missing to a prepaid phone, became the focal point of Detective Maxwell's renewed efforts. He knew that prepaid phones were often used to avoid detection, making the anonymity surrounding this particular call even more suspicious. Every resource was now directed towards identifying the recipient and understanding the nature of that communication. Beyond the phone record, Detective Maxwell felt compelled to re-examine the Peterson family's financial records. He requested a comprehensive audit of their bank accounts, credit card statements, and investment portfolios from the period leading up to and following Claire's disappearance. He understood that financial motives often played a significant role in criminal cases, and he wanted to determine if there were any hidden transactions or inconsistencies that could shed light on Mark Peterson's possible involvement. The initial review of the financial records revealed a seemingly normal picture. The Peterson family lived a comfortable middle-class life, with no apparent signs of financial distress. They paid their bills on time, maintained a modest savings account, and had no significant debts. However, Detective Maxwell was not easily deterred. He instructed his team to delve deeper, scrutinizing every transaction, no matter how small. He wanted to uncover any hidden transfers, suspicious withdrawals, or unusual patterns that might indicate financial impropriety. After weeks of painstaking analysis, a pattern of unexplained transactions began to emerge. Several large cash withdrawals had been made from the Petersons' joint bank account in the months leading up to Claire's disappearance. These withdrawals were unusual, as the family typically relied on credit cards for their day-to-day expenses. The amounts were significant enough to raise suspicion, but not large enough to trigger automatic reporting requirements. Further investigation revealed that the cash had been used to purchase several cashier's checks, made payable to various individuals and businesses. The names on the checks were unfamiliar, and the purpose of the payments was not immediately clear. The discovery of these suspicious financial transactions raised serious questions about Mark Peterson's financial dealings. Detective Maxwell began to suspect that Mark may have been hiding something, possibly related to Claire's disappearance. He decided to explore the possibility of life insurance policies, suspecting that a substantial payout could have served as a motive for foul play. He requested copies of all life insurance policies held by Claire and Mark Peterson, as well as any policies that had been taken out in the months leading up to Claire's disappearance. The insurance records revealed that Claire had a modest life insurance policy through her employer, providing a small death benefit to Mark and Lily. However, Detective Maxwell also discovered that Mark had taken out a separate, much larger life insurance policy on Claire just 6 months before she vanished. The policy provided a significant payout, several times Claire's annual salary, naming Mark as the sole beneficiary. The timing of the policy and the size of the payout raised immediate concerns, suggesting that Mark may have had a financial incentive to harm his wife. Detective Maxwell then delved into Mark Peterson's financial situation at the time of Claire's disappearance. He discovered that Mark had been struggling financially for several years, facing mounting debts and business setbacks. His accounting firm had been experiencing a downturn, and he had taken out several personal loans to cover expenses. He was also facing foreclosure on a rental property he owned, putting him under significant financial pressure. The combination of the life insurance policy, the unexplained financial transactions, and Mark's precarious financial situation painted a troubling picture. The evidence began to point increasingly towards Mark Peterson as a person of interest, suggesting that he may have been involved in Claire's disappearance. Detective Maxwell knew that he needed to proceed cautiously, gathering more evidence to build a strong case against Mark. He couldn't rush to any judgments based purely on circumstantial evidence. The mounting circumstantial evidence solidified the need for surveillance. Detective Maxwell authorized a discreet surveillance operation, placing Mark Peterson under constant observation. A team of undercover officers was assigned to monitor his activities, track his movements, and document his contacts. They followed him to work, to the grocery store, and to his daughter's school, meticulously recording every detail of his daily routine. The surveillance team also monitored Mark's phone calls, emails, and online activity, hoping to intercept any incriminating communications. They observed his interactions with friends, family, and colleagues, searching for any signs of guilt, remorse, or deception. They also paid close attention to his demeanor, looking for any subtle changes in his behavior that might indicate he was feeling the pressure of the investigation. The surveillance operation yielded several interesting observations. Mark appeared to be increasingly anxious and withdrawn, avoiding social interactions and spending more time alone. He also exhibited some erratic behavior, such as driving aimlessly around town for hours or visiting Claire's grave late at night. These observations, while not conclusive evidence of guilt, added to the growing suspicion surrounding Mark Peterson. As the investigation intensified, the focus narrowed on Mark Peterson, with each new piece of evidence further solidifying his status as a prime suspect. The combination of the suspicious phone call, the unexplained financial transactions, the life insurance policy, and Mark's financial struggles created a compelling narrative, suggesting that he may have had a motive and an opportunity to harm his wife. The investigators pressed forward, knowing that the truth about Claire Peterson's disappearance was within reach. The circumstantial evidence was definitely mounting. As the surveillance continued, detectives worked tirelessly to gather more evidence, meticulously building a circumstantial case against Mark Peterson. They knew that without direct physical evidence linking him to Claire's disappearance, they needed to construct an airtight narrative that would convince a jury of his guilt. The renewed investigation gained momentum, focusing intently on corroborating the suspicious financial activity, the life insurance policy, and the mysterious phone call. A crucial aspect of solidifying their case involved re-interviewing individuals who knew both Claire and Mark. Friends, family members, and colleagues were brought back in for questioning, this time with investigators armed with the new information uncovered during the cold case review. The detectives hoped that these individuals might recall details or observations that had seemed insignificant at the time but could now provide valuable context. They were particularly interested in learning more about the dynamics of Claire and Mark's relationship, their financial situation, and any potential stressors they might have been facing. During these re-interviews, a recurring theme began to emerge: Mark Peterson's secretive behavior in the months leading up to Claire's disappearance. Several people described him as being increasingly withdrawn, preoccupied, and evasive. He had stopped attending social gatherings, often made excuses to avoid spending time with friends, and seemed to be constantly on edge. Some even mentioned noticing subtle changes in his appearance, such as weight loss and dark circles under his eyes, suggesting he was under considerable stress. One of Claire's close friends revealed a particularly damning piece of information. She confided to detectives that Claire had expressed concerns about Mark's behavior in the weeks before she vanished. Claire had mentioned that Mark had become distant and uncommunicative, and that she suspected he was hiding something from her. She had even confided in her friend that she feared their marriage was in trouble. The interviews took an even more dramatic turn when one of Mark's former colleagues came forward with a startling revelation. He admitted to detectives that he had been aware of Mark Peterson having an affair around the time of Claire's disappearance. He explained that Mark had been involved with a woman who worked at a different accounting firm, and that their relationship had been ongoing for several months. He had initially hesitated to come forward, fearing professional repercussions and not wanting to get involved in the investigation. However, after learning about the new evidence and the renewed focus on Mark, he felt compelled to tell the truth. The revelation of Mark's affair sent shockwaves through the investigation. It provided a potential motive for his actions, suggesting that he may have wanted to get rid of Claire in order to pursue his relationship with another woman. The affair also added another layer of deception to Mark's character, further undermining his credibility and reinforcing the suspicion that he was hiding something. The affair painted a darker picture of the couple's relationship, suggesting that Mark might have been unhappy and seeking solace outside of his marriage. It provided a credible explanation for his increasingly withdrawn behavior and his suspicious activities in the months leading up to Claire's disappearance. It also suggested that he may have been motivated by a desire to start a new life with his mistress, free from the constraints of his marriage and his financial problems. With the discovery of the affair, detectives turned their attention to corroborating the colleague's statement. They questioned other employees at Mark's firm, and slowly, a clearer picture emerged. They learned of secret rendezvous, hushed phone calls, and late-night meetings. The details, once vague rumors, now solidified into a damning narrative of infidelity. The evidence of the affair also served to crumble Mark's original alibi. Investigators re-examined his claims about working late on the night of Claire's disappearance. They interviewed his colleagues again, this time focusing on the specific hours he claimed to have been at the office. As the pressure mounted, inconsistencies began to surface. Several colleagues admitted that they could not definitively confirm Mark's presence at the office during the entire time frame he had specified. One colleague even recalled seeing Mark leaving the office earlier than he had claimed, providing a potential window of opportunity for him to have been involved in Claire's disappearance. The discrepancies in Mark's alibi, combined with the evidence of the affair and the suspicious financial transactions, created a compelling case for confrontation. Detective Maxwell decided it was time to bring Mark Peterson in for questioning, armed with the new evidence and ready to challenge his version of events. He arranged for Mark to be summoned to the police station, under the guise of providing an update on the investigation. When Mark arrived at the police station, he appeared nervous and apprehensive. He maintained his innocence, insisting that he had nothing to do with Claire's disappearance, and that he was fully cooperating with the investigation. Detective Maxwell began by gently questioning Mark about his relationship with Claire, his financial situation, and his activities on the day of her disappearance. As the interview progressed, Detective Maxwell began to introduce the new evidence, one piece at a time. He confronted Mark with the suspicious financial transactions, the life insurance policy, and the mysterious phone call. He observed Mark's reactions closely, noting his body language, his facial expressions, and the tone of his voice. Mark vehemently denied any involvement in Claire's disappearance. He claimed that the financial transactions were legitimate business expenses, that the life insurance policy was a routine matter, and that he had no recollection of making the phone call. He stuck to his original story, insisting that he had been working late at the office on the night of Claire's disappearance, and that he had no idea what had happened to her. As Detective Maxwell pressed him further, Mark became increasingly agitated and defensive. He accused the detectives of harassing him and of trying to frame him for a crime he did not commit. He maintained his innocence, repeating his original alibi and insisting that he loved Claire and would never do anything to harm her. Despite the mounting evidence against him, Mark Peterson remained steadfast in his denials. He refused to admit any wrongdoing, clinging to his carefully constructed facade of innocence. The interview ended without a confession, but Detective Maxwell knew that he had made significant progress. He had exposed Mark's lies, challenged his alibi, and presented him with a compelling case of circumstantial evidence. He believed that the pressure was starting to take its toll on Mark and that it was only a matter of time before he cracked. The case against Mark Peterson was strengthening, but the lack of direct evidence remained a significant challenge. Detective Maxwell knew that he needed to find a way to connect Mark directly to Claire's disappearance, or the case would likely remain unsolved. He resolved to continue his investigation, exploring every possible lead and leaving no stone unturned until he had the evidence he needed to bring Claire's killer to justice. The pressure was undeniably mounting. The weight of the investigation, the scrutiny of law enforcement, and the resurfaced grief began to visibly erode Mark Peterson's composure. The once calm and collected accountant now exhibited signs of increasing stress and anxiety. He became withdrawn from friends and family, often isolating himself in his home, lost in thought. His sleep patterns became erratic, plagued by nightmares and insomnia. His appetite waned, leading to noticeable weight loss. The detectives watching him observed a man on the verge of collapse, a stark contrast to the composed individual they had initially encountered. His behavior became increasingly erratic and suspicious, drawing further attention from the ever-present surveillance team. He was observed making frequent trips to remote locations, often parking his car in secluded areas and spending hours staring out at the landscape. He visited Claire's grave more often, sometimes multiple times a day, engaging in hushed conversations with the headstone. He started drinking more heavily, often appearing intoxicated in public. All of these actions were documented, analyzed, and added to the growing body of evidence against him. It wasn't conclusive, but it painted a picture of a man struggling under immense guilt and pressure. Recognizing the potential for Mark to inadvertently reveal incriminating information, the police sought and obtained a warrant to conduct secret recordings. They strategically placed listening devices in his home and car, hoping to capture him making incriminating statements to himself or others. The ethical considerations were carefully weighed, but the potential to finally uncover the truth about Claire's disappearance justified the intrusion. The recordings, initially filled with mundane everyday sounds, gradually began to reveal subtle clues and hints that suggested Mark's involvement. He was often heard talking to himself, muttering fragmented sentences filled with regret and self-blame. He would wake up in the middle of the night, screaming Claire's name, followed by long periods of anguished silence. He spoke of the mistake he had made and the burden he carried, without ever explicitly confessing to the crime. The detectives listened intently, piecing together the fragments of his tormented subconscious, searching for concrete evidence of his guilt. One particular recording proved to be especially revealing. Mark was talking on the phone with his mistress. Though her words weren't captured with the same clarity, his side of the conversation hinted at a shared secret and a pact to keep it hidden. He spoke of the need to be careful, to avoid raising suspicion, and to protect their future together. He even referenced the life insurance policy, reassuring her that everything would eventually work out as planned. The conversation was ambiguous, but it strongly suggested a conspiracy between Mark and his mistress to harm Claire. Then came the forensic breakthrough that would shatter Mark's carefully constructed facade of innocence. Years earlier, investigators had meticulously collected samples from Claire's car, hoping to find any trace evidence that could shed light on her disappearance. Among those samples was a small piece of fabric found lodged beneath the driver's seat. At the time, forensic technology was not advanced enough to analyze the fabric in detail. However, with the advancements in forensic science, Detective Maxwell decided to resubmit the fabric sample for analysis, hoping for a new breakthrough. The results were astonishing. The lab technicians were able to extract DNA from the fabric, and the DNA profile matched Mark Peterson. The presence of Mark's DNA in Claire's car was not necessarily incriminating on its own, as he was her husband and would have had legitimate reasons to be in the vehicle. However, further analysis revealed something far more significant. Microscopic traces of soil were embedded within the fabric fibers, and the soil composition matched the soil found in a remote wooded area located several miles from the Petersons' home. The wooded area had been searched extensively during the initial investigation, but nothing of significance had been found. However, the new forensic evidence suggested that Mark had been in that area around the time of Claire's disappearance, and that he may have been involved in transporting her body to that location. The combination of Mark's DNA and the unique soil composition created a powerful link between him and the crime scene. With the forensic breakthrough in hand, Detective Maxwell knew that he had enough evidence to make an arrest. He contacted the state attorney, presented the case, and secured an arrest warrant for Mark Peterson on the charge of first-degree murder in the death of Claire Peterson. The warrant was executed early the next morning, with a team of officers arriving at Mark's home to take him into custody. Mark was visibly shocked by the arrest, protesting his innocence and insisting that the police had made a mistake. He was taken to the police station, booked, and held without bail. The news of Mark Peterson's arrest sent shockwaves through the Tampa community. Many people who had known the Petersons for years were stunned by the revelation, struggling to reconcile the image of the loving husband and father with the allegations of murder. Some expressed disbelief, refusing to believe that Mark was capable of such a heinous crime. Others felt a sense of relief, believing that justice was finally being served for Claire. The community was shocked and relieved by the arrest, but the search for Claire's body continued. Despite Mark's arrest, the location of Claire's remains remained a mystery. Law enforcement agencies launched a renewed search of the wooded area where the soil sample had been found, hoping to locate her body and provide closure for her family. Search teams combed through the forest, using cadaver dogs, ground-penetrating radar, and other specialized equipment to locate any sign of her remains. The arrest of Mark Peterson marked a major turning point in the case, bringing a sense of closure to the community. After 15 years of unanswered questions, the possibility of justice finally seemed within reach. However, the search for Claire's body continued, and the trial of Mark Peterson loomed on the horizon, promising to be a long and emotionally charged ordeal. The community, still reeling from the shock of the arrest, braced itself for the next chapter in this tragic saga, hoping that it would finally bring an end to the mystery of Claire Peterson's disappearance. The trial of Mark Peterson commenced in the Hillsborough County Courthouse, a somber atmosphere permeating the proceedings. The courtroom was packed with members of the community, eager to witness the unfolding of justice after 15 long years of uncertainty. News crews from across the state descended upon Tampa, broadcasting every detail of the trial to a captivated audience. The prosecution, led by seasoned state attorney Sarah Jenkins, laid out their case against Mark Peterson, meticulously presenting the circumstantial evidence they had painstakingly gathered over the years. The prosecution's case hinged on a combination of forensic findings, financial records, and witness testimonies, all carefully woven together to paint a compelling picture of Mark Peterson as a calculating and deceitful killer. They began by presenting the forensic evidence, focusing on the DNA found on the fabric sample and the matching soil composition from the wooded area. Expert witnesses were called to testify about the reliability of the DNA analysis and the unique characteristics of the soil, emphasizing the significance of the connection between Mark Peterson and the potential crime scene. Next, the prosecution turned to the financial records, meticulously detailing the unexplained cash withdrawals, the cashier's checks, and the life insurance policy taken out on Claire Peterson. They argued that Mark Peterson was facing severe financial difficulties at the time of Claire's disappearance, providing him with a strong motive to commit the crime. The prosecution also presented evidence of Mark's affair, arguing that he wanted to be with his mistress and start a new life, free from the constraints of his marriage and his financial problems. They introduced phone records and testimony from Mark's former colleague to corroborate the existence of the affair and its potential impact on Mark's motivations. The witness testimonies formed a crucial part of the prosecution's case. Friends, family members, and colleagues of both Claire and Mark Peterson were called to the stand, each offering their unique perspective on the events leading up to Claire's disappearance. Claire's close friend testified about Claire's concerns regarding Mark's increasingly distant and secretive behavior. Mark's former colleague detailed the affair, providing a motive for Mark's actions. Law enforcement officials testified about the inconsistencies in Mark's alibi, the suspicious phone call, and his increasingly erratic behavior during the investigation. Perhaps the most emotional and impactful testimony came from Lily Peterson, now a young woman, poised and resolute despite the years of pain and uncertainty. She spoke of her mother with warmth and affection, painting a picture of a loving and devoted parent who would never abandon her family. She recounted the devastating impact of her mother's disappearance on her life, the years of unanswered questions, and the unwavering hope that she would one day find justice for her mother. Her testimony brought tears to the eyes of many in the courtroom, humanizing the victim and reminding the jury of the profound loss that Claire Peterson's disappearance had caused. The defense strategy, led by high-profile attorney Robert Davis, centered on attacking the circumstantial nature of the evidence and raising reasonable doubt about Mark Peterson's guilt. They argued that the prosecution's case was based on speculation and conjecture, lacking any direct physical evidence linking Mark to the crime. They attacked the credibility of the witnesses, questioning their motives and highlighting inconsistencies in their testimonies. The defense also challenged the forensic evidence, arguing that the DNA sample could have been contaminated or mishandled, and that the soil composition was not unique to the wooded area. They presented their own expert witnesses to contradict the prosecution's experts, casting doubt on the reliability of the scientific findings. The defense attempted to portray Mark Peterson as a grieving husband and father who had been unfairly targeted by law enforcement. They emphasized his initial cooperation with the police, his lack of a criminal record, and his strong ties to the community. They argued that the prosecution's case was based on speculation and conjecture, lacking any direct physical evidence linking Mark to the crime. Key witnesses for the defense included character witnesses who testified to Mark Peterson's good character and his reputation as a loving husband and father. They described him as a kind, generous, and hard-working individual who would never be capable of harming his wife. The defense also called Mark Peterson's mistress to the stand, hoping to minimize the impact of the affair on the jury. She testified that the affair was consensual and that Mark had never expressed any desire to harm Claire. However, her testimony was met with skepticism by the prosecution, who pointed out inconsistencies in her statements and questioned her motives for protecting Mark. Expert testimony played a crucial role in the trial, with both sides presenting their own experts to interpret the forensic evidence and provide their professional opinions. The prosecution's experts emphasized the significance of the DNA match and the soil composition, while the defense's experts argued that the evidence was inconclusive and could be explained by innocent means. The jury was tasked with weighing the conflicting expert opinions and determining which side presented the more credible and persuasive arguments. After weeks of intense testimony and legal arguments, the case was finally handed over to the jury for deliberations. The atmosphere in the courtroom was tense as the jurors retreated to their private room to weigh the evidence and arguments presented by both sides. The community waited anxiously for a verdict, with news crews standing by to report the outcome. Days turned into agonizing hours as the jury deliberated, grappling with the weighty decision before them. The evidence was complex, the emotions were high, and the stakes were enormous. The fate of Mark Peterson, and the lingering questions surrounding Claire Peterson's disappearance, rested in their hands. The suspense was palpable, with every knock on the courtroom door sending a shiver of anticipation through the crowd. The trial of Mark Peterson had captivated the community, exposing long-held secrets and forcing everyone to confront the painful reality of Claire Peterson's disappearance. As the jury deliberated, the community held its breath, waiting for the verdict that would finally bring closure to this tragic chapter in their history. The tension in the courtroom was almost unbearable as the hours ticked by. Finally, after days of deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. A collective gasp swept through the room as the jurors filed back into their seats, their faces unreadable. The judge asked the foreperson to read the verdict. In a voice filled with gravity, the foreperson announced, "We, the jury, find the defendant, Mark Peterson, guilty of murder in the first degree." Mark Peterson's reaction was subdued. He showed no outward emotion as the verdict was read, his face remaining impassive. He simply stared straight ahead, seemingly detached from the reality of the situation. His attorney placed a hand on his shoulder, offering a silent gesture of support, but Mark remained unmoved. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for a later date. At the hearing, the judge sentenced Mark Peterson to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The sentence reflected the severity of the crime and the devastating impact it had on Claire Peterson's family and the community. The judge, in a stern voice, condemned Mark Peterson's actions, emphasizing the need for justice and the importance of holding him accountable for his crimes. The verdict sent ripples through the Tampa community, bringing a mix of relief, sadness, and a sense of closure. For Lily Peterson, the verdict was a bittersweet victory. While it brought a sense of justice for her mother, it also forced her to confront the reality that her father was responsible for her mother's death. The pain of loss remained, but the verdict provided a measure of peace, knowing that her mother's killer had been brought to justice. The community, which had rallied around the Peterson family 15 years earlier, shared in their grief and their relief. The verdict served as a reminder of the importance of perseverance and the power of justice, even after years of uncertainty. Many people expressed their gratitude to Detective Maxwell and the entire law enforcement team for their tireless efforts in solving the case and bringing Mark Peterson to justice. Despite the conviction, Claire's body had never been found. The search for her remains continued, with law enforcement agencies and volunteers combing through the wooded area and other potential locations. Lily Peterson made repeated pleas to Mark, urging him to reveal the location of her mother's body so that she could finally have a proper burial and find some measure of closure. The search for closure extended beyond the legal proceedings. The community organized memorial services and vigils in honor of Claire Peterson, celebrating her life and remembering the joy she had brought to those around her. Lily Peterson established a foundation in her mother's name, dedicated to supporting victims of domestic violence and promoting awareness about missing persons cases. Looking back at the 15-year investigation, several key factors stood out. The advancements in forensic technology played a crucial role in solving the case, allowing investigators to analyze evidence that had been previously overlooked. The dedication and persistence of Detective Maxwell and his team were also instrumental in bringing Mark Peterson to justice. Their unwavering commitment to finding the truth, even after years of setbacks and dead ends, ultimately led to the breakthrough that cracked the case. The impact on Lily Peterson was profound. She had grown up in the shadow of her mother's disappearance, her life forever marked by the uncertainty and pain. Despite the challenges she faced, she emerged as a strong and resilient young woman, determined to honor her mother's memory and fight for justice. Her unwavering dedication to finding the truth served as an inspiration to others, reminding them that even in the face of unimaginable loss, hope and perseverance can prevail. The story of Claire Peterson serves as a somber reminder of the devastating impact of crime on individuals, families, and communities. It highlights the importance of remembering the victims and honoring their lives, even as we seek justice for their suffering. It also underscores the need for continued efforts to prevent violence and to support those who have been affected by it. In the end, the case of Claire Peterson was a tragedy, but it was also a testament to the power of hope, perseverance, and the unwavering pursuit of justice. While Claire's body has never been found, her memory lives on in the hearts of those who loved her. And the conviction of Mark Peterson brought a measure of closure to her family and the community, a reminder that even after years of uncertainty, justice can prevail. If you have any information regarding the location of Claire Peterson's remains, please contact the Tampa Police Department. And be sure to subscribe to our channel for more true crime stories. Leave a comment down below with your thoughts on this case.